Hi.
Hi.
So, I saw Daniel Howell's We're All Doomed show in Helsinki on Friday, and some friends of mine and lesser friends of mine asked what it was like, and all I really responded was awesome, and I never really elaborated on why it was awesome, because at first I thought it would only make sense that I write a proper review, and then after I realized it's like 6 pages long, I came to the conclusion it just makes sense that I make a YouTube video about this and come back by making a review like I promised. And you're looking at me right now with all of this merch on me and thinking, well, this is gonna be a biased review. And to that I say, actually, I was going prepared to be slightly disappointed. And now you're saying, wow, look at this fake fan. And to that I'm saying, make up your fucking mind. I'm not a fake fan, okay? It's just that Dan is a YouTuber, and as much as I hate enforcing this stereotype, YouTubers are kind of notorious for having rather mid events.
Teachers, am I right?
And this was my first time seeing a YouTuber live, so I kind of kept my expectations low. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised. But let's get to the point. This review will contain spoilers, and no, I did not record anything because that's forbidden. But I will go in detail about topics that Dan talked about, and so if you haven't seen it yet and are going to see it slash are able to go and see it, I highly recommend that you do see it for yourself first, because I wouldn't want to spoil you anything, you know? And it's really a good show, so I recommend it. Okay, now let's actually get to it. The set of the show is relatively simple, yet effective and somehow intriguing. There's this circle monitor and there are lights on the sides. When I first arrived at the place, naturally I first embarrassed myself in front of the staff, and then I heard Seabat playing, and that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is when I first arrived and saw the circle thing, I was like, I wonder what that is. I didn't realize at first that it wasn't hollow, and that's because I'm fucking blind, but I looked at it, I was like, interesting prop. But when eventually I realized that it wasn't in fact hollow, I came to a conclusion that it must be like a monitor or something for a projector or something, used for pre-recorded material or like some kind of presentation like comedy shows often have, and I was right. The show started with this pre-composed montage of like references to what is wrong with the world, like natural disasters and emissions and Greta Thunberg. That makes it sound like she's the thing that is wrong with the world. That's not what I meant. She was just part of the montage. After the montage, Dan appeared on stage, and this dramatic music that was playing during the montage changes to this happy song sang by Dan about how everything is fine. And during this song, the stage was very beautiful. Like the side lights had like rainbow colors, and the smoke was so thick that the lights basically carried through the entire stage, and it was just like a giant rainbow that was very pretty. The song is basically Dan pretending that he is fine and suppressing all these concerns about the world, while in the back of his mind his own voice is like talking about these worrisome things and mocking Dan for ignoring it all. This dialogue goes on for a while, and at some point I was like, please end soon, because you see, it's a pet peeve of mine, whether it's a show, Lucifer,
Were you trying to manipulate me?
or a movie, or like anything. When a joke or like any kind of premise goes on for a while, it pisses me off. But it didn't go for too long, but it was this close for me to be like pissed about it. It ends with Dan like giving in and just losing it and having his first mental breakdown of the show. He falls to the ground, and I gotta say, appreciate me some physical comedy, because after he falls down, he starts crawling seductively. Or maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. The show consists of 2 acts. The First act is more comedic and it consists of a few segments divided by this like slot machine like thing rolling on the screen and introducing the next segment. And the second act, we'll talk about it later. Keep you intrigued. As you may recall,
You'll recall that you also call me Saul.
the show is called We're All Doomed, and Dan talks about these topics that make our world the fucked up place that it is. I feel like at this point I probably forgot some things already, as it's been a few days since I've seen the show, and also, in my defense, Dan had some very good points that made me kind of zone out and think about life. But anyway, first thing Dan talked about was internet and social media. And it's a familiar territory for all of us. I mean, we know Dan through internet, and Dan often makes content that is related to stuff that happens on internet. It's also a good, like, way to start a journey towards heavier topics, because there are a lot of fucked up things on the internet, but there's like equally many good things on the internet, and this was exactly what Dan talked about. This was also the first time audience got to participate in the show. There was like choose the door kind of thing. There were two doors and you were supposed to choose one, and the audience would scream either 1 or 2, and then you see if there's a good thing or a bad thing behind it, haha. There were actually many times that Dan interacted with the audience, and I don't mean just like the classic, "Are we ready for the show? Woo!" No, I mean like actual interactions, like the audience actually got to participate. I think that was very cool, and it's definitely in my top 5 things about the show. I think it was good that it was like audience as a whole rather than like individual people having to come up on stage or something like that, because, well, first of all, it's like a unifying experience, even though at some point it kind of became like a screaming match. But I think it's still better than like individual people coming on stage, because then nobody gets jealous and nobody has to fear like having to come up on stage, because we're all antisocial, okay? We're emos. Past emos, but it's still in us, you know, the antisocial lifestyle. Also, I'm not really giving Dan's comedy justice here, because I can't really retell his jokes to explain how funny they were. You just have to trust my word, because I can't just steal them and be like, yeah, you know, after that he said this and we all lost it, yeah, you get it, because yeah, you got it, good. While the opening was kind of shocking and funny in its own way, I think the show really picked up once Dan got into his own element. Like the topics that he's familiar with and the type of content. I wouldn't say it was like YouTube kind of content. I mean, there weren't any like tier lists like in the other show that he did, like in the bar.
Next up, Tigger. Whoa! What? No! Oi, shut up!
But it wasn't really stand-up either. I think he found this perfect balance that works like for him and for audience, which is awesome. And because he was so natural on stage, it was just very pleasant to be there and see him on stage being so confident. And being confident like makes the jokes better, you know? Apart from internet, Dan also talked about algorithms, AI, conspiracy theories, capitalism, climate change, and here's a little thing that I personally didn't enjoy as much. When it came to artificial intelligence, naturally, AI art was brought up, and the segment was funny, I mean, no problem with that. Dan like asked the audience like, who here is an artist, and a lot of us raised our hands and screamed, me, yeah, woo! And he was like, yeah, that's a lot of people, and then he proceeded to show us AI generated images. And I understood that the show was likely written before people were aware of how AI images are generated, and before it was a taboo, like during the DALL-E era, like all the nightmare fuel that it produced, you know, you remember that? And to be fair to Dan, he mostly just made fun of how bad it looked, and he wasn't trying to recreate any artist's work. It was just a bit too real when he said, hey, we won't be needing artists soon anymore, and then he showed us exactly how we won't be needed. Then again, the end of the world is kind of the theme here, so I can only assume that the show was supposed to cause some kind of distressing emotions. And like, I can't sit here and pretend to be innocent myself when I fully well know that I use DALL-E myself, and it's a whole different topic, and I by not any means want to cancel Dan over this or anything at all. I actually don't even mind AI that much. I think it's a fascinating technology, and the only thing I have issue with is the copywriting and everything. And like, I understand that right now there isn't any accessible way to create these like AI generated images without utilizing someone else's work, kind of. So like, I understand there was no malicious intentions or anything like that, so it's just, it's a topic for another time. It's just like a short segment that kind of stung for a moment, you know? But it's just my personal preference and my views on the thing. Let's move on to something better. My absolutely favorite part from the first act was conspiracy theory Mad Libs. That's where the audience really got to participate, and holy shit, we created some mad shit. Also, here I would like to mention that I'm like 99% sure that Dan does like research before every show, because there were several Finnish references like to Finnish products and Finnish brands, and it creates this like unique experience for each audience. And I absolutely lost it when Dan mentioned korvapuusti, and I lost it even more when korvapuusti became korvapuusi. Because but nothing good lasts forever, as we know, and by the end of the first act, Dan had his second mental breakdown of the show. The topics got heavier and heavier, and it kind of all piled on, and he kind of just like exploded, and then the foam pit cubes fell down. It was very dramatic, and then there was the 20-minute intermission. I considered getting a drink during the intermission, but I don't really like big crowds, so I remained seated, and as I was sitting and observing the crowd, I was thinking to myself, damn, I'm really proud of these people, because Finnish people are notorious for being a silent crowd, but I think we did pretty good. In fact, I don't know if Dan was being nice, but he said that he was like surprised at how loud Finnish people can be. So yeah, I think we did pretty good. Then again, all the noise we caused was 100% genuine, so it's Dan's own fault for causing the noise. The second act, however, would get us all silent, and I'll get to it in a moment. During the intermission, I was wondering what was missing. Like, the show was great, don't get me wrong, but it felt like something wasn't there that is usually present in Dan's regular content, or like at least in the recent content. Like, okay, the existential crisis was there, though it felt a bit disingenuous, but that's probably because it's kind of hard to, you know, force a crisis. So like, all the breakdowns were like acted, in case it wasn't clear enough. When I was going to the show, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like, I assumed it would be a comedy show, but I wasn't 100% sure. And after an hour of high quality comedy, it felt like it made sense, but that like something was missing, and we got that missing part in the second act. The second act started with 5 tips how to survive the apocalypse, which is the only appropriate way to start anything at all. But as the second act went on, it got less and less funny and more serious, and I don't mean to steal Dan's monologue, but I feel like I have to retell it in some way, because it was just very powerful. He started talking about all the tragedies in the world and how it feels like there's barely anything that we can do, and then he started talking about this experience from his childhood when he was bullied in school and nobody stood up for him. And then he said that if even one person was on his side, maybe his whole story would be different. And he drew this like parallel to how voicing opinions is important even if it's all that you can do, because otherwise we can get like desensitized to negative things and we kind of just give in. He used some fancy word for it, but the point is that we can't let the negative things win. We would have no power, no control over ourselves. And then he goes saying that in fact having control is also equally as scary. And he told this very personal story that I wouldn't feel comfortable retelling. It was a very like intimate moment, like Dan opening like this in front of people live. Like, this is why we love Dan, for being this genuine person, for being an inspiration to all of us and being an example. In his story, I like wanted to yell like, "We love you," or something like that, because I can only imagine it's at least a bit painful retelling this like sad experience from your life over and over, almost daily, to thousands of strangers in person. He then quoted one of his older videos saying, "Embrace the void and have the courage to exist." And this inspiration is what we all came to see him live for. He didn't disappoint. Hello, editor Mary with a potato camera here. I realized that what I said in a way contradicts what I felt during the show, so I'm here to correct myself a bit. So while I still mean that the speech was beautiful and emotional and I was saying, while I still mean that the speech was beautiful and emotional and that him being genuine and showing us an example of how to keep living on was subconsciously what we came to see, I would, however, want to mention that when I was sitting there, I had this thought that maybe what Dan was saying was like him trying to move on from his like sad clown branding, because I know it's hard to be the savior of millions of people. You have this pressure, right? And when you surround yourself with themes like depression and anxiety, and you have this image of yourself in front of people, it can feel like you're trapped in it, and it can bring your mood down. And I'm saying this because I kind of experienced something similar during my emo era. Like, I wasn't feeling it anymore, but I had like Instagram followers who were there for emo band fan arts, and it was very hard to escape the mood and the branding. So while I 100% appreciate what Dan is doing, like, no doubt, thank you, saving lives here, okay? I would also want to say that we would all, I think I'm speaking for everyone here, that we would all support him if he wanted to try something different. So yeah. Back to the other Mary. Yeah. He then had this like dramatic ending of him looking at the monitor playing his like older video, and then he headed out and All Star by Smash Mouth started playing. That's Daniel Howell for you, and this is why I stan him. But in all honesty, it was an amazing, well-paced show with a perfect balance between comedy and seriousness, and it was just a very unifying experience, like all the people laughing about the end of the world, and yet we somehow ended on a positive note, and though it had us emotional, like I wasn't the only one crying, I'll tell you that much. And I'm just proud of Dan, like proud and thankful. Dan's content has helped me through many things, and in fact I don't know if I even would be alive if not Dan, as hard as it is to say aloud. And if there's any chance that Dan is seeing this, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the things that you did and continue to do. I'm glad I went. I'm slightly disappointed in myself for not getting tickets sooner, because I was sitting so far away that I couldn't tell if it was Dan or his deepfake. Haha. References from the show. But yeah, if you want to see the show for yourself, he is not done with Europe yet, so check out the tour website, whatever, and see if he's coming to your country/city. And yeah, I recommend it. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be uploading more regularly now, so see ya!
What the am I doing?